ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः।
Dear friends, we are now slowly reaching the end of the third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, and the chapter is dedicated as the chapter of Karma Yoga. How to conduct our life in this world so that though we are victims of our past karma, how we can manage ourselves and lead such a life that while living in this world, while performing your duties of life, instead of being bound down, suffering from bondage, you can liberate yourself from this endless cycle of birth and death caused by karma and karma phala. This is the main theme of the chapter. How we can, without being an escapist, without being a defeatist, without thinking of running away from the world, how can we live in this world? While living, we live in such a manner, with such an attitude, that instead of continuing to be a victim of karma and karma phala, we can go beyond this bond and be free and eternally merge with the divine. Now, at the concluding part of it, Sri Krishna is extremely practical and realistic. He will speak to you that which is absolutely necessary to reach that goal. He will not soften up matters. He will not like to be pleasant with you. He will tell you the whole truth and nothing but the truth, the only way you can reach that goal. Here, only way means if you have chosen to be a karma yogi, how can you reach that goal? Now, why so much of emphasis is being given to karma yoga? This is something you must understand. Sri Ramakrishna, the present day incarnation for the modern world and the future, as long another avatar arrives in the scene, Sri Ramakrishna was born to teach humans how to be one with God. In that process, he established something which was intellectually discussed about previous intellectuals and others, but he wanted to re-establish the concept that all religions developed by saints and seers and incarnations, all those religions, however different they may look, however different they may be in application to your life, but they all lead you to the same goal. So all paths are directed towards one goal, that is, religious disciplines, multiple and multifarious in number, they all lead to the same goal. The goal is one. The avenues reaching to the goal known as religions, They are different from each other, but they reach the same goal. As 360 radii from different points of the circumferences, when drawn perpendicularly, reaches the same goal. This was established by Sri Ramakrishna, but we find his disciple, his mouthpiece, he in a different form as a world teacher, he emphasizes for the modern age, Karma Yoga is the best of all the available avenues. So we find in his statement there's a bit of partiality or bit of partisan attitude. Karma Yoga is the best. Why? Best for the present day circumstances. Mind you, the concept of best is conditioned by the state of the world in which we live today. Why? Even if I want to, as I am constituted, I can't run away from this world. The world will run after you because your mind is in the world. So you cannot run away from your shadow. That's the fact of life. Second fact of life is our lifestyle has totally changed from the lifestyle of the lives when we were living in the forests and the dales and the hills and the caves. That was a lifestyle. And dharma and its anushasana, that is the disciplines of that particular dharma, was conditioned by that time society. In today's world, if you say, I will do nothing but yaga, yajna, etc., 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 the karma kanda, and I'll do nothing, you will not have implements enough to carry on that way in the modern world. What to speak of your surrounding, your own attitude, your own upbringing, that will be against you. In spite of that, if you want to do, you will not have the ingredients required for that activity. So what happens? How to perform your duties of life, how to perform your dharma, which prevents you from going down into a basic biological creature, an animal or a beast, which protects you from going downwards, dharma, dharayate iti, and holding on to which you can manifest the divinity already within yourself. So in the present day context, Sri Ramakrishna had said in many places, I quote only one, Kali Juge Jnana Nishtha Karma, Jnana Nishtha Bhakti is prashasta, is very broad avenue. Jnana Mishra Bhakti is prashasta. Prashasta means it's a right, royal, broad avenue where you have no obstacles. What is that? Jnana, the true knowledge, what is real, what is unreal, blended with affection, respect, reverence, veneration for God. These two, when blended together, is the best way in the modern age. It's a right royal avenue, highway, where there is no traffic lights, there's no traffic jam. You can just run fast. That is what he said. Swami Vivekananda, his mouthpiece, that concept of Jnana Mishra Bhakti, that is emotion well blended with rationality, he gave it a concrete, tangible shape, the concept of work converted into endless worship. Yogaha karmashu kaushalam. It's all here. We have read that. What is it? Kushalata. What is kaushalam in Sanskrit? How do we translate it into another language? The nearest word is dexterity. It's a dexterous way of converting your flow of life into an endless interaction with the divine. Yogaha karmasu kaushalam. Karma yoga is an art of converting your flow of life, karmasu, your flow of life, how to convert it into an endless interaction with the awareness of the divine is the dexterity. And please excuse me, I can't prevent myself from quoting it from the scriptures. Acharya Shankara defines what is dexterity, kushalata. People say efficient performance. No. Efficiency is not the word. Transformation of your attitude is the word. So see what Shankara has to say to define kushalata. Tat hi kaushalam. Yoga karmasu kaushalam. That's what the Gita says. What is kaushalam? Kushalata, dexterity. Now he is describing it in concrete terms. That is kushalata. That is kaushalam. That is dexterity. Yani, absorbing which, practicing which, performing which, bandha sabhavanyapi karmani sabhavat nivartate. Work, as it is performed by us, is a cause of bondage. Why? Because no activity is possible without motivation. And what is the motivation? Desire to achieve, to attain, to conquer, to own. That is the motivation. I want you to understand the innermost meaning of the Gita. That motivates me to this activity. If I am not aware, the general tendency because of my past, prakritim yanti bhutani nigraham kim karishyati. What can your effort to restrain do to you because you are a victim of your past force of karma, prakriti. So kushalata is transforming that prakriti of yours, that natural spontaneity of yours. What is that natural spontaneity? I am motivated with an idea to achieve my ambition, fulfillment of my ambition. Jani bandhat sabhavat nivartate. Kushalata is that, dexterity is that, I'll be taught, I'll be trained, I will be educated with such an attitude, with such an understanding that when I perform my duties, I am aware I should not be motivated by worldly returns. Well. If I am not motivated by worldly returns, I am demotivated and no activity is possible. So, unmotivated activity is a contradiction in terms. There has to be a motivation. What will that motivation be? Not to be motivated by motivations of the world. Try to understand. Not to be motivated by the present day motivation because of my prarabdha, my prakriti. I am motivated to fulfill my desires. Not to be motivated by that motivation is my new motivation. Don't say unmotivated activity is not possible. I agree. Don't try to teach me that. I am trying to teach you, the Gita says, there is a motivation. What is that motivation? Not to be motivated by the motivations of the world. It's a negative motivation. How it could propel you to pravritti marga? How will it propel you to performance? It's a negative motivation, not to be motivated. He says, I am trying to explain to you how this worldly motivation can be controlled, can be managed, can be corrected, and then how it could be replaced by a new positive motivation. The first is, I understand the worldly motivation has to be corrected. He says, don't be motivated by worldly motivation. Not to be motivated is your new motivation. But not to be motivated is a negative motivation. I have to perform. I have to earn by the sweat of my brow. So what is the positivity of that motivation? Convert it into an endless worship of the divine. This is the positive motivation. That is, your motivation for worldly desires is now being counteracted by not to be motivated by worldly desires, but to be a correct performer, a perfect performer, an excellent performer, and a supreme performer. What is that performation? I convert the concept of work into worship. Let me analyze this again so that it is absolutely as clear as daylight. What is work or activity? It involves 5 concepts: physical activity, emotional activity, rational activity, and egocentric activity. I am doing. 5 concepts are involved in the concept of work or activity. What is worship in ordinary meaning? We are in a shrine. As soon as we come in, we know we have to bow down. Bowing down is an expression of modesty, humility, and self-surrender. It's an activity, physical activity, bowing down. While you are bowing down, you are supposed to think that God is represented here. He is here and I am pouring my heart out to Him with my concept of surrender, modesty and humility. Emotional activity. The worship consists of physical activity, emotional activity, and then you are a rational being. You say these are all pictures, portraits. They are material. But you know these portraits, these material pictures, they are nothing else but the symbol of something which it symbolizes. Pratibhu, representative. That is, these pictures are the representatives of that eternal reality. Your rationality is working. You see the picture, but you are convinced that these pictures are the symbols of the Absolute. And you say, I am in the shrine, I am worshipping the divine. What is happening? Analyze it. Make use of your nut. Make use of your brain. I am physically active in the world. When I am active or working, I am physically active when I am in the shrine, known as worshipping. The highest common factor between the two, work and worship, is physical activity, emotional activity, rational activity, and involvement of my ego. 4 of them are common. The additional dimension, which is only available in worship, is awareness of presence of the divine. Otherwise, it's not a worship. All that physical, emotional, rational and egocentric activity that you performed, you are performing in worldly manner. Now what you are supposed to do is always try to remember and to add by your attitudinal correction of your attitude, you develop the discipline of remembering the divine every moment of your life, and you interact with the divine physically, emotionally, rationally, egoistically, based on rotating around awareness of the presence of the divine. That's worship for you. That worship saturates you with the awareness of the presence of God. The more you remember, the more you do, more you are saturating yourself with the awareness of presence of the divine. And while living in this world, as you have learned the kushalata, the kaushalam, the dexterity of converting worldly activity into a worship, you have learned the trick of the trade. You have learned the kushalata of it, kaushalam. That is, work as such is the cause of bondage. You have converted the concept of work into worship, and there is no chance of bondage. This will liberate you, and you will merge with the divine. Jani bandha svabhavanyapi karmani sabhavat nivartate. This is kushalata. This is the secret of karma yoga. This is the aspect that Sri Krishna, in a language, under the traditions and sense of values, the value system of that world, when he wrote this book, described or recited the Gita, it was written. Swami Vivekananda and his master Sri Ramakrishna has interpreted the same thing in a modern language. Convert your concept of work into a concept of worship. And instead of bondage, work leads to bondage. It is swabhava. It is its natural, spontaneous instinct. You deny that swabhava and you perform your karma as a worship, and you are making a right royal path to your goal. This is what it is. Now let me quote a few and go ahead. Pravrittim yanti bhutani nigraham kim karishyati. Shloka number 33. That we are all victims of our past karma, which we say this is our nature, this is our natural tendency, this is our attitude, this is our aptitude. We follow that force. What can we do? Willful effort and etc., etc. It just passes like a drop of water in a hot frying pan. It evaporates. But that is the only way in a modern world. So, he says now, the second shloka 34. We have spent much time, but these are the catchwords which will help us to understand shloka number 39 up to 43, where the chapter ends on the 43rd shloka. And we'll start from the 39th. The 34th shloka, immediately after the 33rd, when I'm totally depressed, if I am a victim of my past karma, what is the good thing? Why should I do all that? Let me be, let me remain as I am. What is the necessity? What is the possibility of my going beyond my prakriti? Shloka number 34 immediately tells you. God teaches you how to be a karma yogi in his own way. But understand the lakshartha, the inner meaning. What is the intention of the divine? He says, look, indriyasya indriya arthe raga dvesha vyavasthitam. This is a universal law of nature that my 5 sense organs, man 5 active organs, all of 10 of them are going outwards to grab and get hold and enjoy those objects. Indriyasya indriya arthe raga dvesha vyavastito. Raga is attachment, dvesha is aversion. Liking and disliking. It is a spontaneous flow because of my past prakriti, because of my nature, the way I am built and the way I find myself to be in my life, this life of mine. In a way I find myself to be in this life. What is that? I see something, either I am attached or I am indifferent. That's natural. He says this spontaneity is the force of habit that you have created unknown to yourself in your past life, even before studying the Gita. Say, for instance, this is the first time you are being exposed to this idea. This is the first time you are being exposed to idea. Oh, I can live in this world without being a victim of likes and dislikes, without being a victim of pleasure and pain, without being victim of attachment and aversion. It is something new. Nobody ever told me. Let me see what Sri Krishna says. He says, look, this is natural, spontaneous, because of your past makeup. Analyze, how did it happen? Because you have been repeatedly doing so. And that repetitiveness causes a force of habit, and you are a victim, a slave of your force of habit, of being a victim of raga and dvesha, like and dislike, attachment and aversion. And the end result is pleasure or pain, happiness or sadness, ecstasy or agony, difference in intensity. That is what happens. Now look to the second line of the 34th sloka. Tvayor na basham agachet. As simple as that. Of these two spontaneous reactions of yours, raga and dvesha, attachment and aversion, like and dislike, which results pleasure and pain. Let us stop at liking and disliking, attachment and aversion. Tayo, of these two, basham na agachet. Force yourself, discipline yourself, that you do not become a victim of that previous force of habit. Why? To raga dvesho, attachment and aversion, asya, they are, both of them, they are inimical, obstacle to your goal that you desire to achieve. What is that goal? You have made up your mind, you would like to be one with God. There's no compromise anymore. You have made up your mind, and this lesson is for you. If you have not made up your mind, you may hear, but you may not follow. But if you have made up your mind that during this lifetime of yours, you will reach that goal, then the first lesson is live in this world without that motivation of enjoying the results of your sense organs, the experiences generated by sense organ or by active organs, and develop liking and disliking. Get rid of it. Tayor na basham agachet. 4 words. Underline it broadly. To be lived upon, not only to hear, listen and to forget. To be made use of it in your life. Tayo, these two, basham na agachet. Do not be a victim of this habit, this pravritti, this force of habit which has enslaved you. Why? Because these two are totally obstructive to your growth towards your spiritual goal to be one with God. How can that be done? Let us analyze further. After all, we are humans, we have rationality. Let us understand it further. How does a habit happen? How do I make myself a slave of the force of my habit? How do I do so? Analyze it. Think over how this habit happens. Oh dear me, habit has formed in me how? Willful, repetitive, similar activity, physically, emotionally, rationally, egoistically. All 4 concepts are involved. I keep on performing similar activity in these 4 different planes, repetitively, willfully. And each time I do, an indelible impression is left in my brain. And then it becomes a deep groove. If you've seen plowmen plowing their soil land, you'll find he plows it once, then he re-plows it on the same line to go deeper, and he does it thrice or 4 times till he's satisfied with the depth of that groove, so that when water flows, water goes through that groove and doesn't spill over. That's the most concrete, practical example. Similarly, you do something willfully. Why? You think you'll enjoy the result thereof. You do it, and what happens is your brain is a storehouse of your memory. It has a line there. You willfully do it again. As because there is a furrow, it gets deeper. And it gets deeper again. More and more you do, the more and more the groove gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And you are creating a force of habit because willful, similar, repetitive activity. That is how you have formed a habit. Willful, repetitive, similar activity done over and over and over again creates a force of habit. And that force becomes so strong by willful repetitiveness that your willpower fails to compete with it or stand up to it. Your willpower, which you have. This is how habit forms. Wait a minute. If that has happened to me, I have willfully, repetitively, similarly performed an action over and over and over again. And that has caused me an habit. Well, I can change that object of habit. Let me willfully repeat the name of God, along with it, repeat emotionally the awareness of presence of God in me, and I carry on with my willpower and my rational, rock-solid conviction, this is my goal. But what happens? Your force of habit is stronger than your willpower as of now. So what happens? You remember for a while, and your past force of habit forces you to forget. As I keep on telling you, is a tug of war between remembering and forgetting. But you don't stop. You create a force of a new habit. The new habit is awareness of presence of God. And how do you do it? Synchronize it with your flow of life. Don't make it partitioned. Only 2 hours in 24 hours. Nothing doing. 2 hours is a concentrated effort. And the rest 22 hours is just remembrance. This groove in your brain is getting deeper and deeper and deeper. The force of habit, of new habit that you are starting, is slowly and slowly growing in dimension. And a time comes, they are at par, and you don't stop, you continue. This force of habit erodes the past force of habit. You are a victim of a new force of habit. And what is that force? to be in God and to be with God all the time. That is what happens to you. Tvayor na vashamagachet. I am diluting it to you. I am trying to explain it to you in a most commonsensical, simple language. But this is what is meant psychologically. How do you do your sadhana as a karma yogi? You sit for your meditation. Why? Because in a meditative time, there is no disturbance. The intensity of our thinking is undisturbed, and that intensity grows with your practicing. That is your meditative period of life. Then there's a period of life when you are academically involved. Academically means rationally you involve yourself to these ideas in such a manner it becomes crystal clear and rock solid, unshakably solid as a piece of granite. Conviction. That conviction forces you to live in God, to live with God when you are active in this world. It's a different type of meditation. Meditation is only confined to a corner of a room, all dark and nobody to disturb you. That is like a laboratory habit. You have created a situation where you are not disturbed. Now you go strong. You live in this world, but the habit is so strong that you live in God, you live with God, you do so by the grace of God. Do it by your rational willpower. Because to be motivated by worldly motivation creates insurmountable obstacles on your path to be one with God. Tayor na vashamagachet yasya paripartino. So he says, pravrittim janti bhutani nigraham kim karishyati. As we say, what can I do? I sit for meditation. Instead of thinking of God, I think of everything else. Why? Because it's a tug of war between forgetting God and remembering God. Forgetting God is because your pravritti, your prakriti, your past force of habit, and remembering God is a rock-solid conviction. I must develop this habit to live with God, to be in God, to be with God, that too by the blessings of God. Nothing but God in my life. Please, for heaven's sake, try to correct the force of habit which is taking you in a manner which is a godless area. You better see God everywhere. And that is not a old maid's tale. It's not a fairy tale. God is everywhere. I don't know it. He is everywhere. I have to know it, and after knowing it, I have to experience it. Jnana matures into vijnana. So this is the secret of being a karma yogi. And the other aspect of karma yogi, let me continue this. The other aspect of a karma yogi, as I gave you an example during the Upanishad classes the other day. The Gita says at a place, Jadrishi bhavana jasya siddhir bhavati tadrishi. The way of life or the spiritual attitude with which you build up your life you're conditioning your awareness of presence of God with that attitude. That is why in our scriptures there is a saying, Drishti Srishti Bad, subjective idealism. I think of that eternal existence known as divine in this particular form. I have developed a rock-solid, crystal-clear idea about that infinite, that eternal, that pure and simple existence, awareness and bliss, Satchidananda Swarupa Atma or Brahman. For my understanding, he has crystallized himself into a form. Guru Maharaj used to say, water has no form, but coolness condenses the water into a form of an ice. So that Nirakar, Nirguna, Nirvikalpa Brahma, by the devotee's attitude, he forms himself in that form to fulfill the desire of the bhakta, devotee. So you and me, we have decided this is the form of the divine. So when I have saturated myself with this idea that that divine is my true original nature, and that divine, though is beyond name and form, but for my understanding has assumed this form. And I meditate on it. I am creating a force of habit. And when that saturation is complete, I see that Nirgun, Nirvikara, Nirvikalpa Brahma as Saguna, Sakara, Savikalpa Ishvara. And that Ishvara says, Ami achi, I am. Ami hoyechi, I have become. Ami eshechi, I have arrived. That is what Sri Ramakrishna says once. He was deep in trance at a satsang. And people hear, he says, I am. And after a while they hear, he says, I have become. And finally he says, I have arrived. Abhi achi, abhi hoechi, abhi eshechi. 3 stages. Nirgun, Nirvikalpa Brahma, Saguna, Sakara, Ishvara, and Avatar. He who has descended in a human form to human body. So what is happening is, you are now expected, or you are now requested, I would say, don't wrestle with your past. You better wrestle with yourself to develop this unbreakable habit of being one with God through your physical activity, through your emotional activity, through your rational activity, through your egocentric involvement with God and God alone, because He is everywhere, all-permeating, all-pervading, omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, divine. Please try to develop this idea. And Karma Yoga teaches you to see God everywhere with your wide open eyes. You see the chair, but you see the existence, satta or astitva of that, isness of that. Awareness and ignorance goes together. Let us move on, dear. May not be making any progress. Now, Arjuna is listening. Let us go to shloka number 36. He is still unable to understand. we have discussed for an hour, we are still unable to understand why does, with all that rational understanding, a human being is unable to control himself as if somebody has got hold of him by the neck and make him do things which he really does not want to do. If you are very introspective, dears, you will find there is a time in your life, an occasion in your life, a situation in your life where you don't want to do something, but unknown to yourself, a force holds you by your neck and makes you do so. You will experience in your lifetime, if not, you have already experienced. Arjuna asked, Sir, kena prajuktaha, forced by whom? As if by holding by my neck, balativa, with all the force under his command, makes me do something which I do not want to do. Anichchanapi vashneya. Hey Krishna is according to his family name, Brishi Vangshodbhava Vashneya. He belongs to the clan of Brishi. So, hey Krishna, I find that sometimes somebody holds me by my neck and gets me do things which I really do not want to do. What is this all about? Could you explain it to me? This is what he asks in shloka number 36. In shloka number 37, Sri Krishna now comes to the details of it which we have been discussing so long. Kama esha, krodha esha, rajaguna samudbhava. Look, what you know as 6 propensities, kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya. Kama is lust and desire. Krodha is anger. Lobha is greed. Moha is confused thinking. Mada is vanity, pride, egoistic, holier than thou, stronger than thou, wiser than thou. All the best qualities of the world is in me, not in you. Atma sambhavita stabdha. He is two things, too much of himself. So, such a person, these 6 propensities are nothing else but the deflection of kama. That is why he only mentions 2. All the 6 are involved. They are Rajaguna Samudbhavam. Rajaguna from the modern point of view is that cosmic force which expresses itself through dynamism. Dynamic, kinetic, forceful, manifesting itself in force. Sattvagun is the balance of Rajaguna and Tamaguna, not influenced by the dynamic energy, cosmic energy, or the indolence of ignorance. He is at poise with himself, utter serenity, tranquility, and equanimity. That is Sattva-guna. Rajaguna is dynamism. I want this, I want that, I would like to do this, I would like to do it. All that is Rajaguna Samudbhavam. They have come from when Rajaguna has subjugated Sattva-guna and Tamaguna. Satta, Tama, Abhibhuta, Raja. Abhibhuta means it is under the thumb of Rajaguna. This Kama and Krodha, which you know, the 6 propensities, they are the manifestation of Rajaguna. And Mahashanaha Mahapapna Vidhi Enam Iha Bairinam. The same thing he again repeats in a different manner. Asana is to eat. In kamana, in desire, more you fulfill your desire, more hungry you are. There is no satiation in your desire. Mahasana. It has an infinitely big belly. The belly is never full. Mahapapna. That is, it takes you away from the virtues of leading to God. It rather leads you to animal way of life. Know for certain, Vidhi Enam Iha. In this world, know for certain, it is your worst enemy, Shatru. Vidhi Enam Iha Bairinam. Bairi is Shatru, Ari is an enemy. Kama Esha Krodha Esha Rajaguna Samadbhavam Mahapapna Mahasanaha Mahapapna Vidhi Enam Iha Bairinam. So that is how Sri Krishna starts again. And from here, the 38th shloka, which we have read before, he gives you an example. What type of enemy it is? Is it insurmountable enemy? Or it is surmountable enemy? What is that force which holds me by my tongue and makes me do things that I don't want to do, which takes me away from my God, which is the worst enemy in my life? What is that force? Is it surmountable or it is not surmountable? I would like to know. Before I gird up my loins, before I start fighting for it, I should know what is the goal. See how rational it is. It is not only poetic, it's an exalted poetry, but every word has its wisdom. So he says here, look, I will give you 3 examples. What type of Shatru it is. What type of an enemy it is. Not an insurmountable, indestructible enemy. You can get rid of. How? Say, for instance, fire, having burned properly in the fuel, is covered with ash and a little bit of smoke. The little moisture that is converts itself to smoke, and it is grey ash all over. You don't see the fire there. The fire is there, but through your sense organs, you don't see it, feel it, touch it, taste it, smell it. How do you come to know that fire? You make an effort. You take a pair of tongs, hit the ash out of that burning amber, and see to it that the smoke is on, and then you see crimson red fire is burning. Fire was not visible because it was covered up. You did some effort by means of which you uncovered the covered fire. That fire is your true original nature. It has been covered up by the ignorance of your own true nature, self. And that fire is revived again to your understanding by doing some acts and deeds to remove the coverings of the fire. This is the first example. Second is Jatha Adarsha Malenacha. I've given you 1,000 times a mirror covered with dirt. Slowly and slowly, by your effort, you are bringing back the reflectivity which is inherent in the mirror. You are polishing yourself clean. to reflect your true original nature in the mirror of your chitta, your mind stuff. And a child in a mother's womb, though the child can move his hand freely, but it is restrained by the womb. When it comes out of the womb, it is free. The mother ejects the child from the womb. That much effort the mother does to give the child the freedom. These are the three types of example for you to know that though it appears to be an insurmountable enemy, an obstruction which is of mountain size high, but it is correctable, it is removable, it is banishable, it is erodable. This is how he says in the 38th shloka. 39th shloka is what we have to study. He now concludes after the three examples. I'm sorry, I've taken all the time to revise it, but it is necessary. Next day, I'm not going to revise. Please remember, listen to the talk before you come to listen to the next talk. 39 shloka. What does he say? Abritam jnanam etena jnanino nittabairina. Let us stop here. Abritam jnanam etena. With all this ajnana, with all these propensities, it is all covered up. It is in you, it is in me, it is everywhere. But my ignorance of my true original nature is being covered up by all these six propensities. Why is he saying so? These six propensities a human knows by proper education, proper discipline. I can control my six propensities and get rid of it. That is why all this preface has been created from the 33rd shloka to the 39th shloka. And from the 39 to the 43rd shloka is just a repetition of those ideas from different perspectives, not knowing which perspective will appeal to you. It's Matri Sama is the mother. Mother knows which student, which child can digest what, and she feeds her child with the food that is easily digestible by the child. That is why Upanishads and the scriptures are said to be Matri Sama, like the mother. It feeds the child with the food that the child can assimilate. This is what the child can assimilate. Abritam esham jnanena. Abritam etena jnanena. Jnanam. Abritam etena jnanam. Jnaninam nittabayrinam. The man who is a human, who is desirous to experience this, to know this, these six propensities are nittabayri. They are always enmical. They are always standing in your way. And they are kama rupena. The main thing is desire. That is lust and desire. Kama rupena kaunteya dushpurena analena cha. If you want to put off the fire, you don't put fuel into the fire. If you want to quench the fire, for heaven's sake, don't add fuel to it. But we are, in our lifestyle, we are continuously putting fuel to fire. That is why that fire never extinguishes. Fire of desire. I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. this desire is a constant factor in our life. Nitya Bhairina. It's a constant factor in our life. It has to be thrown out, and adding fuel to fire will not help you. Don't think it will get satiated. Mahasanaha. Its stomach is infinitely big. You can't fill it. More and more and more and more. That is what it is. Thank you, dears. Thank you for taking a little more of your time. We will start from the 39th shloka during our next class. And this very idea and some very positive thoughts from Sri Krishna to cheer us up, that we should not feel depressed and despondent that this idea is too strong for me, I'd better not try. He will cheer you up later on. Thank you, dears. Thank you.
Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanam